There are dozens and dozens of great things to do in Mexico City. Today, let's do two of them. On this particular trip to Mexico City, we were staying in Centro. And my hypothesis was the Xócalo, which is usually crowded, wouldn't be crowded at 7 in the morning. The short walk from our hotel proved that I was right. The buildings surrounding the Plaza de la Constitucion are substantial and ornate. Now, my particular visit was during the run-up to the World Cup, so this guy had this view of the Metropolitan Cathedral. A large festival was underway for women, and though it was a month long, it didn't start this early in the morning. No, this time of day you get to see the sweepers preparing the Xócalo for the crowds later. So on one side you have the buildings of the City Hall, on another, shops and offices, across from that, the National Palace, and then, as a sort of focal centerpiece, the Metropolitan Cathedral. Because the plaza had been hosting events like Shakira's concert attended by about 400,000 people, there was still a stage and some stanchions in front of the cathedral itself. The Xócalo is a real place used by real people for real events. It's not just a photo opportunity, but that said, it's extremely photogenic. I knew from having been in the area throughout some earlier days that there were some protesters out and about, and some riot police at the ready, but many things here remind you of the past, such as this pay telephone. This morning was a bit gray and overcast, but that's a small price to pay for having this entire place almost entirely to myself. For now, let's head back to the hotel and get ready for the main event of the day. Chapultepec is a park in the middle of it all in Mexico City. On the day of our visit, the light was dappled and the air was cool. And while a stroll through this park is pleasant enough with its forest, there's so much here. For many, the Museum of Natural History would be the highlight, and indeed we do need to get there, but today we were going somewhere else. So after a little extra walking, because the Uber app doesn't understand that Exceso Gandhi and Puerta Gandhi are the same thing, and after this musical interlude, we made our way to the meeting point for our guided tour of Chapultepec Castle. Many vendors outside the gate were still setting up, but we would see them later. I was pleasantly surprised to find out that my visit would be free because of my age. And then, with the guide, we set out uphill. And it's a lot of uphill, but it's never particularly steep. It's not that hard. Even outside the castle, the guide was telling us many interesting things, and I can tell you right now, I'll never do justice to everything we learned. But I'll try to show you the highlights. One of the first things that we were told was, like so many other places, what's there now is not necessarily what was there historically, but there was always something there. Two things would affect our agenda that day. The first was a rather large crowd of students, and the second was renovations. So our tour was going to focus on the art and history of Mexico. And while much of the art was the kind you would expect to find in a museum, some had a little bit of a morbid taste to it. These were the top part of remains of beheaded folks. And there was no shortage of murals like this one of an Aztec being run through by a Spaniard. Wait a minute, maybe these were morbid. And there were these representations of how Mexico City looked when the Spanish were there. This mural encapsulated political and social history of Mexico from the end of the 18th century into the early 19th century. It concludes with Morelos leading Mexican independence. And of course then we see Santana, who often served but never a full term. And then a lot of important military history where Mexico is fighting the United States, Texas, France, and even itself. With the mural of Benito Juarez comes a discussion of the Habsburgs and Mexico's struggles in the mid-19th century. All of this leading up to the Revolution of 1910. And at least on the route we were taking with our guide, we headed back outside and took a little break on the benches before we continued our tour. Next, well, okay, look, I'm as guilty as the next guy of wanting that perfect photo spot to document my travels, and looking down Reforma to the Angel of Independence is a pretty great spot, and my guide insisted on taking the photo, so anyway, I like it. The ornately decorated rooms that you see in the palace are not really things that were in the palace. A lot of them were from Paris, but the exhibits are very upfront about that fact. You step outside after your pass at looking at the ground floor rooms, and you go up a flight of stairs, and that's where you find the artifacts showing that Mexico was really trying to establish itself as a major player in the 1800s. According to our guide, a lot of what you're seeing now was brought there to impress the European diplomats. I'm no diplomat, but I was impressed. I mean, who doesn't like a rooftop garden with an observatory in the middle of it? As Sir Isaac Newton had so accurately predicted, because we had gone up to the top of Chapultepec, now we had to go back down. Overall, this had been a good experience. I'm glad we had a tour guide with us, though. There was a lot to absorb. As always, thank you for watching. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, would you consider hitting the like button? Even more so, would you consider subscribing to the channel? I can't tell you how much it helps. Thanks again.